The old janitor moved through the halls of West Burbridge Military Training Academy like a ghost, unseen and unacknowledged. His gray custodial uniform bore no name tag, just the silent weight of years etched into his face and posture. Every morning, he arrived before the first cadet stirred, sweeping floors and emptying trash with quiet precision. The recruits, brimming with arrogance from polished upbringings, barely glanced his way. To them, he was part of the scenery, a fixture to mock or ignore. They strutted past him, their laughter echoing as they rehearsed for futures they assumed would be glorious. The janitor never reacted to their taunts. When a cadet dubbed him Sergeant Mop or joked about his limp, he simply kept working, his silence mistaken for submission. But his stillness wasn't weakness. It was the calm of a man who had weathered far worse than childish ridicule. His faded retired cap hid a past none of them could fathom. Occasionally, he'd pause by the Academy's Wall of Honor, his gaze lingering on a black-and-white photo of a young officer saluting in a sandstorm. No one asked why. No one cared enough to wonder. The disrespect escalated as the annual symposium approached. In the cafeteria, Cadet Landon deliberately spilled his tray at the janitor's feet, grinning as food splattered the floor. "Oops! Looks like we got a mess, soldier," he sneered, drawing laughter. The old man knelt without a word, cleaning the debris as others added to it. Crumpled napkins, banana peels, all while mocking his patience. They didn't see the steel beneath his silence. They didn't know he'd survived battles where arrogance got men killed. To them, he was just a punchline. Days later, a prank application appeared on his cart. Senior Custodial Commander, with Mop Fu scribbled under skills. He folded it neatly into his pocket, unfazed. The cadets mistook his restraint for defeat, but the truth was simpler. Their approval meant nothing. He'd earned respect in blood and sand, in moments too dark for their polished world to imagine. While they slept, he worked. While they boasted, he remembered. The names of the fallen, the weight of command, the cost of war. They were children playing soldier. He'd been one. The symposium arrived, and the academy buzzed with anticipation. General Marcus Denning, a 4-star legend, was keynote speaker. Cadets preened in starched uniforms, nerves taut as bowstrings. As the assembly hall filled, the janitor pushed his cart down the quiet hallway, pausing to adjust his cap. Inside, Denning entered to a room of snapped salutes, then stunned the crowd by walking past the podium. Every eye followed as he stopped before the janitor and saluted. "Sir," he said, voice thick, "it's an honor." The room froze. The janitor, Commander Elias Roor, returned the salute with worn precision. Denning turned to the gaping crowd. "This man saved 212 lives in Operation Goliath," he said. "You know him as the janitor. I knew him as a hero." Cadet Landon turned ghostly pale. The name Roor was whispered like a revelation, a shadowy legend from Black Ops now standing before them in a custodial uniform. The general's voice cracked. "He deserves more than your respect. He deserves your awe." The room swayed with the weight of the truth. Denning offered Elias the podium. For the first time, the old man spoke. "I didn't come back for applause," he said, scanning the room. "I came to remember the ones who didn't." His words were quiet, unpolished, and devastating. He spoke of sand-choked battles, of orders that haunted him, of men who'd died following his lead. Cadets wiped their eyes. Instructors shifted, guilt-stricken. When he finished, the silence was absolute. Then Landon stood, trembling. "Sir, I'm sorry," he choked out. One by one, the cadets rose, saluting not a janitor, but a commander. Elias didn't linger. He turned and walked away, broom in hand, as the room held its breath. The lesson was clear. Respect isn't given with rank or ribbons. It's earned in the dark when no one's watching. That day, the cadets learned the difference between wearing a uniform and living its weight. And as Elias disappeared down the hall, the academy's walls seemed to whisper his name at last, not as a joke but as a legend. The quietest man in the room had left the loudest mark. The aftermath of the symposium rippled through West Burbridge like a shockwave. Cadets who'd once mocked Elias now avoided his gaze, their shame palpable. Landon, once the ringleader of disrespect, volunteered for extra cleaning shifts, silently working beside the man he'd taunted. Elias never acknowledged the change, treating him no differently than before. The Academy's instructors, mortified by their complacency, revised the curriculum to include lessons on humility and the unseen sacrifices of veterans. The Wall of Honor gained a new plaque, unofficial, unsigned, bearing a single word: remember. Weeks passed, and Elias continued his routine, sweeping halls now steeped in uneasy reverence. One evening, he found a sealed envelope on his cart. Inside was a handwritten note from the cadets. "We didn't know, but we'll never forget." He tucked it into his pocket next to the prank application. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same hands that had mocked him now sought redemption. He didn't need their apologies, but he understood their need to give them. War had taught him that guilt, like respect, was a weight carried silently. General Denning visited monthly after that, often arriving unannounced to walk the halls with Elias. They spoke little, their conversations a shorthand of shared history. Once, Denning asked if he'd consider teaching. Elias shook his head. "Let them learn the way we did," he said. "The hard way." Denning nodded, respecting the boundary. The cadets watched these interactions with awe, piecing together the fragments of Elias's past. Missions hinted at but never detailed, a career erased for secrecy's sake. The janitor's silence became a lesson in itself. Landon, driven by remorse, sought out Elias one evening. "Sir," he stammered, "how do you move forward after what you've seen?" Elias paused, studying the cadet's desperate eyes. "You don't," he said finally. "You carry it." The answer wasn't comforting, but it was honest. Landon left with a heavier step, understanding for the first time that heroism wasn't about glory. It was about bearing the unbearable. That night he wrote to his parents, confessing his arrogance. His father, a retired colonel, replied with a single line: "Now you're ready to lead." The Academy's culture shifted. Cadets began greeting Elias by name, some even saluting despite his lack of rank. He returned neither gesture, but his nod of acknowledgement became a coveted sign of approval. The sergeant mop jokes died, replaced by a hushed reverence. When a first-year recruit dropped a tray, he scrambled to clean it himself before Elias could intervene. The old man watched, amused. Progress, he supposed, came in small acts. The symposium's footage leaked online, sparking debates about veteran treatment. The Academy, once a bastion of tradition, became a reluctant symbol of change. Elias's health declined as winter set in. His limp worsened, his pauses at the Wall of Honor grew longer. Denning noticed, arranging for a VA doctor to visit discreetly. Elias refused most treatments. "Time's undefeated, General," he said. Denning clenched his jaw but didn't argue. Instead, he commissioned a portrait, Elias in his prime, saluting in that sandstorm, and hung it beside the photo he'd always paused at. The janitor said nothing when he saw it, but his hand brushed the frame once, gently. The gesture spoke volumes. The cadets sensed the shift. They began leaving coffee on his cart, the way he liked it. Black, no sugar. Notes appeared too. "Thank you, sir." One included a dog tag replica engraved with "Roor Never Forgotten." Elias stored them in a drawer, unread but not unappreciated. Landon, now a squad leader, quietly ensured the janitor's workload lightened. The Academy's commandant, once oblivious, approved a pension upgrade retroactively. The paperwork arrived unsigned, as if ashamed of its lateness. Elias filed it away without comment. On a frigid January morning, Elias didn't clock in. The cadets noticed immediately their routines upended by his absence. Denning was called. They found Elias in his tiny apartment, lifeless beside an open footlocker. Inside were medals wrapped in cloth, a folded flag, and a stack of letters, all, addressed to families of the fallen. His will, handwritten on VA stationery, left his savings to a veterans shelter. The only personal request: scatter my ashes where the sand meets the sea. The academy held a service with full honors. Every cadet attended. Landon delivered the eulogy, his voice breaking. He taught us that respect isn't demanded, it's earned, he said, and that the quietest men often hold the loudest histories. The speech went viral, cementing Elias's legacy. The janitor's cart, now enshrined in the Academy's museum, bears a plaque. Commander Elias Roor, who showed us what honor really means. Cadets touch it for luck before exams. The Wall of Honor's sandstorm photo now hangs beside his portrait, a silent testament to the man who walked among them unseen until they learned to see. Years later, Landon, now a captain, returns to West Burbridge as a guest instructor. His first lesson isn't about tactics but about a janitor. He shows the cadets Elias's folded prank application and the thank you notes. He kept them all, Landon says, even the insults, because humility isn't ignoring disrespect, it's rising above it. The room is silent. After class, a first-year cadet stays behind. "Sir," he asks, "do you think he forgave us?" Landon smiles sadly. He didn't have to. He understood. The cadet nods, eyes wet. The lesson, as always, lingers. The Academy's tradition of Roor's Day begins organically, a single day where cadets perform custodial duties. They sweep, scrub, and empty trash in silence, experiencing the labor Elias endured. Instructors don't explain the purpose. The cadets learn it themselves. By afternoon, blisters form on their hands, and their backs ache. "Now you know," a senior murmurs. The exercise needs no debrief. That night the mess hall is spotless, trays cleared without a crumb. Respect, they realize, isn't given, it's lived. Denning retires, dedicating his memoir to Elias. The dedication reads, "For the man who taught me that leadership isn't about being seen, it's about seeing others." The book becomes required reading at West Burbridge. Cadets annotate passages, debating Elias's choices during Operation Goliath. Some argue he should have demanded recognition sooner. Others grasp the deeper truth, that Elias hadn't needed it. His peace came from service, not applause. The debates rage, but the conclusion is unanimous. His quiet dignity was his final greatest mission. Landon, stationed overseas, mails a sand-filled vial to the Academy. It's placed beneath Elias's portrait, a tangible piece of the deserts he'd fought in. Cadets add to the collection, pebbles from Normandy, soil from Gettysburg, until the display becomes a mosaic of sacrifice. The janitor's legacy, once confined to whispers, now anchors the Academy's ethos. Recruits are told, "You don't earn your rank here, you prove you're worthy of it." The distinction, subtle but vital, traces back to one man's silent example. On the anniversary of Elias's death, Denning visits the VA hospital, delivering coffee to forgotten veterans. He listens to their stories, recording each one. The project, dubbed Roor's Record, becomes a national archive. Politicians cite it when advocating for veteran healthcare reforms. The media dubs it a triumph, but Denning knows the truth. It's an apology. For every Elias overlooked, for every hero reduced to a punchline, the old general works tirelessly, as if making up for lost time. Guilt, he's learned, is a relentless motivator. Landon's squad, inspired by Elias, adopts a highway near their base, cleaning it monthly. Locals assume it's mandatory service until they see the sign, adopted in memory of CMDR Elias Roor. A news crew covers the story, and donations flood in for veterans' causes. Landon refuses interviews, redirecting credit to Elias. The gesture sparks a movement, just carry the quiet, where civilians perform unseen acts of service to honor overlooked heroes. Social media trends fade, but this one endures. Its simplicity, resonating. Elias, who hated attention, would have scowled. Denning laughs at the thought. The Academy's janitorial staff, once invisible, now eat in the mess hall with cadets. Conversations are awkward at first, but barriers crumble over shared stories. A custodian, emboldened, reveals he's a retired Marine. Cadets listen, rapt, as he describes Fallujah. The dynamic shifts permanently. New recruits are warned. Everyone here has a story. Assume nothing. The lesson, hard won, becomes foundational. Elias's cart, preserved behind glass, serves as a daily reminder. Rank and role are not the same. Landon, visiting home, finds his younger brother mocking a homeless man. He intervenes, not with anger, but with a question. What if that's Elias? The boy scoffs until Landon shows him the photo, the janitor, the general, the salute. His brother stares, then apologizes to the stranger. Landon doesn't preach. The image speaks for itself. Later his brother asks, "Do you think there are more like him?" Landon nods. Everywhere. The boy joins him at the next Hauris carry the quiet cleanup. The cycle continues. Denning, nearing the end of his own journey, requests his ashes be scattered with Elias's. Where the sand meets the sea, he specifies. The ceremony is private, just Landon, a few cadets, and the crash of waves. As the Ehid ashes mingle, someone notes the symbolism, the general and the janitor, united in eternity. Landon smiles. No, he corrects, the commander and his soldier. The distinction matters. The wind carries the remains outward, grains of sand lost to the tide. Somewhere, Elias is rolling his eyes. The Academy's latest class graduates, each cadet pledging to serve with humility. The phrase, once hollow, now thrums with meaning. Landon, watching from the stands, spots an elderly custodian sweeping the periphery. He excuses himself, approaching the man. Need help, sir? The janitor eyes him warily until Landon offers his hand. I'm a friend of Elias Roor's. The man's face softens. They work in companionable silence, the broom passing between them. Tradition, Landon realizes, isn't just about the past. It's about passing it forward. Years later, a historian uncovers declassified files on Operation Goliath. Elias's actions, redacted for decades, are revealed in stark detail. How he'd carried wounded men through gunfire. How he'd refused evacuation until every soldier was safe. The media clamors for posthumous recognition. Denning's successor proposes a statue. Landon, now a colonel, vetoes it. He wouldn't have wanted that, he insists. Instead, they establish the Roor Scholarship for enlisted personnel seeking degrees. The first recipient is a janitor's son. Elias, ever the pragmatist, would have approved. The quiet legacy grows louder.